กองเอกสารเก่าๆในตู้ที่เราเอาไปทิ้งไว้นะครับแต่จริงๆแล้วมันคือร่องรอยมันคือจิ๊กซอว์นะครับที่เราจะมาประติดประต่อแล้วก็นำไปสู่อะไรบางอย่างอาจจะเป็นการนำไปใช้นะครับในการขับเคลื่อนประเด็นทางสังคมนะครับเอกสารและร่องรอยในอดีตนะครับมันคือสิ่งที่เราสามารถนำไปใช้ในการสร้างหรือว่าผลักดันความเปลี่ยนแปลงในอนาคตได้นะครับซึ่งในวันนี้นะครับเราก็ได้รับเกียรตินะครับจากคนที่ทำงานนะครับในเรื่องของการศึกษานะครับร่องรอยทางประวัติศาสตร์และนำมาใช้เพื่อผลักดันการเปลี่ยนแปลงในมิติต่างๆนะครับก็ผมอยากจะแนะนำแล้วก็อยากจะเรียนเชิญวิทยากรของเราทั้ง3ท่านนะครับขึ้นเวทีนะครับท่านแรกนะครับอาจารย์ Tyrell Haberkorn นะครับจากมหาวิทยาลัยวิสคอนซิน แมดิสันนะครับซึ่งวันนี้อาจารย์ Tyrell นะครับก็จะมาพูดถึงนะครับงานศึกษาล่าสุดของอาจารย์นะครับในเรื่องของเอกสารและจดหมายนะครับรวมถึงเอกสารต่างๆงานเขียนนะครับของนักโทษการเมืองนะครับในประเทศไทยตั้งแต่ยุคกบฏสันติภาพนะครับมาจนถึงสถานการณ์การเมืองในปัจจุบันที่เราก็มีนักโทษการเมืองบางส่วนนะครับเช่นทนายอานนท์นำพานะครับที่ยังอยู่ในเรือนจำนะครับแล้วก็ท่านที่2นะครับก็คือคุณอีต้านะครับจากอินโดนีเซียนะครับคุณอีต้าเนี่ยนะครับก็เป็นคนที่ทำงานนะครับในเรื่องของจดหมายเหตุแล้วก็เรื่องของเอกสารนะครับที่เป็นเรื่องของการเอกสารที่เกี่ยวข้องกับนักโทษการเมืองนะครับโดยเฉพาะผู้หญิงนะครับที่เคลื่อนไหวร่วมกับกระบวนการฝ่ายซ้ายในประเทศอินโดนีเซียนะครับแล้วก็ได้นำเอกสารเหล่านั้นนะครับมาทำให้มันมีชีวิตนะครับนำมาใช้เป็นฐานนะครับในการสร้างองค์ความรู้ใหม่ๆรวมถึงผลักดันการต่อสู้นะครับเพื่อความยุติธรรมรวมถึงเรื่องของสิทธิของคนที่ถูกรัฐนะครับใช้อำนาจนะครับในการกดขี่ข่มเหงนะครับในอดีตแล้วก็นำเอกสารเหล่านั้นเนี่ยมาทำให้มันมีชีวิตแล้วก็ใช้ในการผลักดันความเปลี่ยนแปลงนะครับคุณนิต้าเนี่ยมีงานชิ้นหนึ่งนะครับที่เดี๋ยวแกจะเล่าให้ฟังในรายละเอียดก็คือเรื่องของพิพิธภัณฑ์เคลื่อนที่นะครับว่าเอกสารที่เคยเก็บบันทึกไว้รวมถึงเรื่องเล่านะครับประวัติศาสตร์บอกเล่าต่างๆนะครับที่มาจากผู้ที่ถูกกระทำด้วยความอายุติธรรมในอดีตครับว่าเอามาใช้ในการขับเคลื่อนในการต่อสู้ในยุคปัจจุบันอย่างไรนะครับแล้วก็ท่านสุดท้ายนะครับคุณอัญชนา ฮีมินะนะครับจากกลุ่มด้วยใจนะครับซึ่งในวันนี้เนี่ยคุณอัญชนาก็เป็นคนหนึ่งที่ทำงานอย่างต่อเนื่องในพื้นที่3จังหวัดชายแดนภาคใต้นะครับโดยเฉพาะยิ่งการบันทึกเรื่องราวปากคำนะครับของผู้ที่ถูกกระทำด้วยการซ้อมทรมานหรือการปฏิบัติที่โหดร้ายทารุณนะครับโดยการบันทึกเรื่องราวเหล่านั้นเนี่ยไม่ใช่แค่เพื่อวัตถุประสงค์ในการจะไปดูข้อเท็จจริงอย่างเดียวว่าเกิดอะไรขึ้นแต่นำมาใช้นะครับนำเรื่องราวเหล่านั้นจะถูกนำมาใช้ต่อยอดในงานหนึ่งต่อไปนะครับโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งในเรื่องของการเมื่อมีการสร้างกระบวนการสันติภาพหรือการกระบวนการยุติธรรมเปลี่ยนผ่านแล้วเนี่ยไอ้เรื่องราวที่มันถูกบันทึกไว้เหล่านั้นครับจะถูกนำมาใช้ในการเยียวยาผู้รับผลกระทบในหลายๆมิติครับเพราะฉะนั้นในโอกาสนี้ผมก็ขอเชิญทั้ง3ท่านนะครับ May I invite all the panelists to be on the stage so we can start our discussion. Thank you. Hello. Okay, sorry. Before we begin, I would like to inform about how we're going to proceed with this section. So each panelist will start their own presentation about 20 minutes, and I will very strictly the time 20 minutes, and then we will open the floor. So those who are present in the hall, you can either direct the question to either any panelist or to the panelists as a whole, or you can also make a short comment or express your own opinion about any matter that we discuss on the panel. but please limit your response or comment to 3 to 5 minutes so we can have as much as people sharing their idea. And just for the quick announcement, on this event we have live streaming in Thai language on the Facebook of Museum of Popular History ก็ภาษาไทยนะครับจะถ่ายทอดทางที่สามัญชนนะครับแล้วก็ for the English language we will broadcast on the Instagram of the Under the Banana Tree Network. So if any of you kindly join the click like or follow the IG of the Under the Banana Tree Network will be really appreciated. So Ajahn Tyrell, could you please share with us about your current study on the writing or the document that has been produced or made by the political detainees in Thailand? And what are the findings that you see from by going through the whole writing? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start by thanking Anon Chawalawan, thanking Isbemai, Zikri Raman, and the entire Under the Banana Tree Network. I was able to listen to the workshop with all of the different archives from around the region over the past 2 days, and found the work to be truly remarkable, and would urge anybody who is coming today go browse outside to see the really, really incredible documentation and challenging dominant narratives that are happening all around us. So I want to start by saying I'm not an archivist. I'm a historian and a translator. And as Anon mentioned, I'm currently writing a book that is at once a history of political imprisonment in Thailand from the peace revolt to the peasants of the peace revolt, the period of imprisonment between 52 and 57 of variously leftist, internationalist, socialist, and communist thinkers and activists up until the present. It's also at the same time a book that is a political prisoner intellectual history. So what I'm sharing today are pieces of that work. And I wanted to start with 2 points of inspiration, or 2 political prisoners whose struggles and lives bookend the present. The first is Anon Nampa. Anon is a lawyer, human rights defender, poet, and father. He's one of nearly 300 people facing prosecution under Article 112, or the Lèse Majesty Law, following the 2020 protests for democracy. He's been accused of violation of Article 112 in 14 cases, 12 of which have already been decided. With that in mind, he's one of 61 current political prisoners in Thailand. He's been in prison this time since the 26th of September 2023, and his current sentence from the first court decisions in those 12 cases is 31 years and 10 months. Since he's been imprisoned, he has been writing. In some prisons in Thailand, letters are currently sent out semi-electronically. So what do I mean? I mean that prisoners write 15-line letters on paper provided by the prison, which you can see on the screen. They're then censored and sent out via app to the named recipients. In Anon's case, they are then disseminated publicly via his Facebook page, which has over 300,000 followers. Very shortly after being sentenced, Anon began writing letters to his children, who are now 3 and 9, and explained in the letters that he did so that they would remember him. Shortly after he was imprisoned and he began writing his letters, I began translating them, partially because he is a friend and colleague, but also because I wanted to read them closely, and translation is a way to do so. As I did so, I quickly realized that between the lines of his letters about his daily life, his instructions to his kids, and his explanation of his hopes and dreams, he was also sharing a message for the broader audience that was reading his letters in their disseminated form about political transformation, about how to sustain struggle in times of difficulty, and also ideas of what a fair and just poverty might look like. The second point of inspiration is to quote Dr. Gun, a thinker and activist who was imprisoned for over 8 years in the 1950s, first in the Internationalist Peace Revolt, and then as an alleged communist. Ironically, for the second time for being a communist, because he wrote a book about the Peace Revolt. Writing behind bars in the 1950s, Duayjai explained that, quote, "The history of each nation, which is essentially the history of the movements of the masses, has become solely the story of kings. When the masses are left out, the history of the nation or of its people is transformed into the history of the conquering kings instead of being the history of the masses who created society," unquote. History is one of the 42 words defined in the essays that comprise A People's Political Lexicon, which is the cover of the book that you see, which he wrote while he was imprisoned during the Peace Revolt. And the book is based on the lectures and conversations that he had with the over 100 colleagues who were imprisoned with him at that time. And they were incredibly ideologically diverse, from internationalists who were against Thailand joining the U.S. The U.S. Army in fighting in the wars in Korea, to a range of socialists, a range of communists, and then other uncategorizable activists. Among the 42 words are words related to governance, such as law and civil servants, as well as those that are explicitly left, such as vanguard and utopian revolution. He carried the lexicon out of prison in a cream cracker box. So they're those same crackers actually that are now wrapped in plastic. They used to be in boxes to avoid anyone suspecting that it was something other than a snack and it being used. The amazing thing about the book, which I should know I first read over 20 years ago and was actually quite obsessed with for a long time, because I thought the form of the book was really, really remarkable. And I thought that its origin, being based on lectures given at this moment where political prisoners were able to live collectively in Thai prison and teach one another all sorts of things, they also had language classes, was really quite amazing. But the book is actually kind of boring if you read it. I was hoping there would be sort of this incredible critique, but it's actually a much more subtle story. And what you find, or what I found upon reading it over and over and over again, is that in these essays, in which Thailand is actually mentioned quite rarely, a lot of it is world history and sort of much broader concepts. But what I realized when I started thinking about the book as a record of that moment is that Duayjai is writing about what an ideal Thai society might look like. He's mapping what a just economy looks like. He's mapping what a state that treats its citizens well looks like. And he's, I think, also through these definitions, mapping a way for citizens to be active as part of creating that society. In other words, what he mapped in the book is precisely the kind of imaginative work that landed him behind bars in the first place. I use this as a point of departure to explain the broader project because his critique of the historiographic dominance of kings mirrors Thai political life. In 1932, there was a transformation from absolute to constitutional monarchy, but as many have observed, this remains incomplete. The people remain marginalized, and in particular, criminalization and punishment of those who are critical of this marginalization is central to the maintenance of power. With this in mind, and inspired by Anon and Duayjai, it seems that paying attention to the writing of political prisoners is one way to counter the violent exclusion of dissident people and ideas in the colonies. There are many different ways that one can define what a political prisoner is, who a political prisoner is. The way that I do so in this project is those who are political prisoners or those who are targeted and locked up for questioning authority or imagining the polity, and in particular how power and resources are divided to be more just and democratic. Part of why it's necessary to decide how one wants to define the concept is to not take the state's definition as one's own. Not least because in the context of Thailand, the Department of Corrections identifies political prisoners somewhat early on, but they actually stopped doing so by the 1960s. So they have a category in their reports for political prisoners up until then, and then it just disappears. Not because they stopped being political prisoners, but because they stopped being recognized as such. So if we take Supo's definition of history and his life to heart, rather than those who hold power, the polity and what's politically possible within it is shaped by those who are excluded from it. In other words, this is a particular kind of history from below, one that privileges the prison and those who inhabit and write within it. If we make the prison the central site of political history, then transformations unfold not in the parliament, not in the streets, but in the cells and prison yards, places that are largely out of view, but quite critical. A different chronology, unhinged from coups, prime ministers, and other big key politics, emerges. In turn, an intellectual history of political thought, forged behind and through bars, reveals the enduring and subversive imagination of radical democracy, different kinds of change, contestations of state violence and power, and the incredibly diverse and not at all unified commitment to equality and justice mobilized across generations of political prisoners. I think I quite foolishly hoped that I would find one magical thread that everyone from the 1950s until the present shares. But it's not at all true. There are, in different moments, there are communists, there are socialists, there are radical Democrats of many different forms. So, how does one write such a history? What might one do? First, I would suggest that it means treating writing by political prisoners as history and method, rather than a source of data or a source of evidence. Second, it means assembling a collection of this writing. Prison officials often treat, at least in the context of Thailand, the writing by political prisoners as dangerous. And so writing that political prisoners engage in must be done in secret, smuggled out like Supo's lexicon in a snack box, or completed from memory after release. And to be clear, there are very few official sources of political prisoner writing. If you go to the National Archives on Sunset Road, you won't find any. But what I found is that they're actually present in many places, so much so that the book that I'm writing is, I would say, is representative and selective rather than being comprehensive, because there's actually so much material that one has to be selective. So where is it present? So writing by political prisoners is present in petitions to the court, in collections held by the Attorney General, in dissident and exile publications held by the Thammasat University Archive. In some recent cases, if you stopped by the table of the Museum of Popular History outside, held by the Museum of Popular History. Also for recent cases, they're present in the databases of ILAW and Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, also outside, in petitions for bail, in petitions for judges to recuse themselves in court declarations. These are all forms of writing where one finds the voices and struggles of political prisoners. They're also present in published, although often out of print form, so in memoirs, in collections of letters, in short stories, in essays, in Supo's lexicon, and in some cases, writing that wasn't made public during someone's life, but that is published by their families in funeral volumes afterwards. Many works written while in prison have stories stories of supposed about how they left prison in a lawyer's file folder, concealed in a body, sent out as letters, sent out in other forms, and published under a pseudonym. Third, one has to decide how one wants to read this writing. I noted earlier that it's urgent not to treat political prisoner writing simply as a source, but to treat it as history and method. So what does that mean? It means that writing by political prisoners leads the story rather than the other way around. So I want to share two passages that illuminate what this might look like. So the first is Barbara Harlow, who wrote about political prisoner writing in El Salvador, Palestine, the US, and South Africa. And she writes that the literature of prison, composed in prison and from out of the prison experience, is by contrast necessarily partisan, polemical, written as it is against those very structures of a dominant arbitration and a literary historical tradition that have served to legislate the political neutrality of the literature and the literary critic alike. Reading prison writing must in turn demand a correspondingly activist counter-approach to that of passivity, aesthetic gratification, and the pleasures of consumption that are traditionally sanctioned by the academic discipline of literature. The second is from All They Could Do to Us, which is the prison memoir of Quentin Munholm, who was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for love majesty in February 2015 for allegedly being part of a play deemed to insult the king. Her book, which is close to 900 pages, is a daily account of everything that occurred in the Central Women's Prison. And she begins with this message to her reader. The part that I want to read out loud is the second paragraph, where she says, "We do not wish for sympathy, even if you read this entire book cover to cover, a book that we ourselves struggle to define, and you gain some understanding of what happened in that other world. You still will not feel what we felt. Even if you think you get it, there's no way to feel it. This is not an issue of something being wrong. It's just to say that there are limits to feeling another's experience, but there is no way for it to go any further than understanding," unquote. And every time I read this passage, I think precisely, and what she writes is antithetical to the usual forms of expertise and smoothing over that the writing of most histories, even by even progressive academic histories from below. To write such a history, to be part of overturning power, means being humble, being willing to unsettle, and also being willing to be unsettled oneself. I want to conclude by turning to a letter from Anun Namha from the 12th of July, 2025, as a message to those of us who are historians, who are archivists, who are activists. And he wrote, quote, "Fish naturally swim against the current. Ailing and dead fish float downstream on the current. In the past decade, we have seen many living fish in various fields who swim upstream, including academics, media workers, artists, and actors, plus university students who all swim against the current. They swim against every breaking, violent wave. I have never doubted that living fish, who sometimes allow themselves to float with the current, or who fall asleep when the current stills, will once again swim against the current when the time is right and appropriate. I believe this with all my heart." So, let us archive, write, and swim against the current.
Thank you, Tyrell. I think for those of us who are in Thailand, we may aware that Facebook of Anun Namha is always active, and whenever there is a political situation happen, it's still connecting with the outside world. Maybe I just try to share my view a little on this. That One time, our museum had a chance to organize the exhibition together with Right, the group that working on the right of the political detainees. And one of the activities that they did is that they organize the writing activity, write the letter to the prison, political detainees. Because for those detainees, the letter is just one of the connection, is the only bridge that bridge them between the inside and the outside world. And to my surprise, most of the time, it is not us, people who are outside, who cheer them up. But it's all the way around. It turned out that those who are in detain, struggling with their own life, with all the harsh conditions in prison, it seems like they share their sympathy to us. For those who are outside and they cheer us up. I think that is something that made me impressed. And for those who are in this exhibition, after the session is done, may I invite you to go to my museum booth. I did bring some of the collection of the writing of people who are in the prison to show you in this setting. So you're welcome to look at it. So from Thailand, I would like to move on to Indonesia, where Ida, who is working tremendously on collecting archive, not just archive in the sense of the paper, but archive as the memory of the past, of those who were oppressed, and how those memory can be used to strengthening or support the mobilization toward the justice work in the current day. So I would like to hand the floor to Ida. The floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, friends and colleagues. I would like to share my experience, but it is not just experience, it is my life, because I live with a husband who spent of his life while he was in the camp concentration as an activist of the cultural institution in Indonesia. He was 90 years and paralyzed because of the torture and severe of the breakdown of the prisoner. The archive for me is about the archive as a source of resistance and to struggle for justice. Archive is not just a paper. Archive is a life. Archive can be the source of the soul of the victims. And this is the books that we collected. Why I said we? Because me and my husband for about 20 years, we tried to collect it, all the material, all the sources, all the writing of all the victims of the violence against women and male during the coup in the 1965. So this is the book that we found, that we collected, and the book is given by the victims, and they said that I will give you my diary, my writing, my life. Yeah, this is the book that we collected, and it is part of how they speak to me that you have to responsible to the struggle, and you have to responsible to fight for the justice. So for me, archive is part of the soul, part of my life to fight. So this is the This is the letter of the Secretary General of the Gerwani, Gerakan Wanita Indonesia. It's the leftist and progressive women movement in Indonesia, destroyed by the New Order, and she was put into the jail. And This is part of her writing because her name is Ibu Sulami. And she wrote a lot of diary and she wrote a lot of poems. Yeah? So she gave all the archive to Ruas. Ruas is my collective with other friends. Ruas is an archive and history room for Indonesian women. It's a collective space for critical thinking by women, historians, and activist intellectuals. Ruas' work is an archiving oriented toward memory, activism, practices, thought, feelings of women for justice, social and political cultural change. Ruas defined archival activism as a social movement to document movement, thought, and feeling in order to present narratives of women that have not been documented in Indonesian history. This aim preserve and define women's movement as a supporter of social change, justice, and equality. We define that what is the archive? Archive is memory is a tangible and effective archive, a history of life and legacy of memories that are nurtured and preserved. The state has an obligation to provide space, protection, so that the collective memory of society becomes a source of imagination, formulating the path of nationality. What we have gone through now is that the government has destroyed the imagination of the people. So we have to bring back the imagination of the people who fight against justice. The imagination of us as a people, of us as a people. This is what we fight against. This is my husband. Yeah. My husband was a writer, a poet, a historian. He became member of the People's Cultural Institution, or very popular with Letra, and served as a chairman in Central Java as the Secretary General of Letra. And he was appointed to represent Indonesia in the Asian African Writers Movement in Colombo, Sri Lanka. He became an editor of the Fall magazine and traveled throughout the Asia Africa and became a facilitator for the writers in Asia and Africa to fight against the colonialism. Yeah. And he is very thought about how the writers to fight against and support the national liberation movement. In 1966, when the government changed in Sri Lanka, where he was based in Colombo, the Asian African Writers Bureau was forcibly closed. And Henry has to return to Indonesia. Unfortunately, 1996, Indonesia experienced a military coup by Suharto. Henry was arrested and sent to a forced labor camp in Pulau Buru Island for 10 years. What happened with while he was in Pulau Buru? The banana tree is part of his activity. Every night he wrote a diary. Every night he spent of his life to write about the situation of the culture in Buru Island. Buru Island is in the eastern part of Indonesia. Buru Island is a very small island. And Buru Island also where Pramudia Anak Natur was stayed there with Henry and other writers and poets. Henry wrote a book called Memoir Pulau Buru or Buru Island, a prison memoir. But besides that, he also wrote about 15 books about the torture and the situation of the writer, of the activist, of the leftist and progressive movement. He is 90 years old, paralyzed, and he couldn't write at all. But his soul, his idealism, he used to write with his left hand as easy, and I have him to think about what you're doing. So I think from my experience, assisted my husband as a political prisoner, I thought that I had to fight for the justice, for not just for him, but also for other political prisoners in Indonesia. I graduated from Gajah Mada University, and I found that about 3,112 students and 6 lecturers who were forced to send to Guru Island as a labor force. Yeah. So I started to find what happened to all of this. So as a feminist, I started to look at the women prisoners, women victims. And this is the mass grave. Actually, I used to, since about 20 years, I used to look for the mass grave for the women, mass grave. Yeah? And the photos that we collected series of photos of the women activists in Indonesia during the 50, the 40, 50, and the 65. And this is one of the women who were very, very active during the 50 to the 65, who fight against the women's rights. And they are members of the Berwani, the Indonesian women movement. And what happened for all of those, they are from Surabaya. They put into the well. This is the not harbor, forest. I went to the forest in East Java and I found 11 wells. And into the well, they put the women activists, and all of them is what in the well, like with also the children. They put light into the well and then close the well. This is not just in East Java. This is in Aceh. This is in West Java. This is in Sumatra. This is in Bali. This is the torture of the women who are very active, but not also the women, but also the men who are very active to fight against against the Suharto. They are the member of the progressive movement, the labor, the peasant. The lecture in my hometown, in my university. Yeah. So this is just how the forest, there's a lot of well, and inside the well, the remnant of the activity. So we collect it. We make a mapping. We make a geography of the culture. The geography of the culture is part of how we have to think about the justice, about what we have to do, about the risks we have to fight against the human rights. Yeah. So the archive is very important. We collected photos, we collected lessons. I visited all the mass graves, and I took a photo. I went to visit the family. I went to visit the camp, and now this is the camp that detainees, the Plantungan concentration camp. It is located in Kendal, South Semarang City, Central Java. Camp Plantungan or Plantungan camp has been a leper colony during the Dutch colonial. And it was converted to a concentration camp where women political prisoners were held. The number of female political prisoners who were sent to Plantungan were 500 women from across Java, Sumatra, Bali, and Madura. Apart from Gerwani members, the political prisoners in Plantungan consisted members of several Communist Party organizational wings such as the People Cultural Center, Institute Lekara, and the Indonesian Scholar Association. This is the photo that we take from the archive. Yeah, this is the photo. This is the photo of all the women, 500 women. And in the middle is the general of Sumitro, who organized the camp. And this is the mapping, the geographical torture of the women. How the women, if you are the women still have an ideology of the communists, they put into one of the centers of torture. So this is the mapping of how the prison of the women in the camp Plantungan in Central Java. And that one, and this is one of the photos of the men of the prisoners, women prisoners in Plantungan. You know, every morning they have to wear a traditional costume. It is a compulsory. If one of them didn't use the traditional, we will just put it into the torture, into one of the torture cell. So all the cell is very, very systematic. In each of the cells, or each of the compounds, the military will be there. Yeah. Now, this is my book that I wrote. It is about the female prisoners who were tortured both physically and mentally while in prison. Female political prisoners not only suffer from being arrested, detained, imprisoned, and tortured, but were also stripped, naked, and gang raped. And their human dignity was abused in Plantungan. I thought when I was in Plantungan, I found in one of the prisons a lot of the remnants of the baby. It's in forced abortion. And every night they took one of the women prisons to raped by the military. Now, I don't want to just store the archive. I have to bring back I recall the memory of the torture, of the fear of the women. So I developed or I created mobile museum. Mobile museum are living archive to answer the challenge and rethink the museum as a growing space for dialogue and historical reconstruction. Museums are space of history, memory, body, voice, image, and cultural expression. Museums are process for archiving collectively and communally as a moving space of culture and dialogue and not dependent on physical building, but as a bridge of creation, of participation, and embodied production. So we bring all the artifacts, all the artifacts to the community, and we discuss with them. We discuss about what happened. It looked like a recording movie, and how we dialogue. Sometimes we ask the survivor to be part of our discussion. And the mobile museum, that was the dress of one of the survivors of the Plantungan. And we put like television platform. If every visitor can just take talk and then the dialogue between the subtitle and the participant. Yeah. So we try and we make a photo of the artifact. Yeah. And then we bring all this artifact to go to Bali, to go to East Java. And then in each region, they can just add other artifacts. So it is a collective, it is a participation. And then we also try to encourage them to look for the artifact, to look for the archive, for their family, for their community. Now, this is the, and then campaign. From the archive, we try to bring the justice. That was the campaign and advocacy. This is what advocacy and campaign that we make it. And we went to the parliament and we asked them to discuss with us. Yeah. So because the Indonesian government will write a national history, and we fight it against the project of the national nationalism. But we fight against it. We have to go to the parliament first. So the Indonesian historical to campaign and to advocate, we created Indonesian Historical Transparency Alliance. Was formed in June 2025 as a response to and an rejection of the Ministry Cultural of the Republic of Indonesia writing of Indonesian national history, which was authored by more than 100 historians. AXI, or the Indonesian Historical Transparency Alliance, consists of and standardization of history constructed by state, so that there is no longer a single voice of the truth. For AXI, history belongs to the people, not the government, but the state has the obligation to guarantee the independence of the nation, especially those who have experienced injustice, including their rights and freedom to remember, speak, write their collective history. So AXI, why do we reject the writing of Indonesian history and proposed by the Ministry of Culture? The willing of Indonesian history to legitimize the ruling regime. History must be democratic, pluralistic, and open to willing. There is no such thing as official or national history. History not for glorification of power. Okay. The essence of history belongs to the people, and the truth of history, which has been interpreted unilaterally by those in power, must be rewritten through historical clarification movement based on the voice of the victim. This project, the Minister of Culture, was carried out without public consultation. We fight that and was closed by the inner cycle within the military and the fascist regime. The writing period was short, 7 months. It is referred to as official history and national history. The removal of the Indonesian women movement and its figure is very important. This is the last line. So, we and the women movement and the social movement, okay, the memories and narratives of survivors are a resource for redressing past injustice and building a new justice for humankind. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ida. Just a very quick summary. For those of you who are newcomer, we have the headset for the presentation. The session we conduct both in Thai and English. So if any of you doesn't have the headset, you can go to get the headset at the side of the seat. I'll just quickly make a summary in Thai. สิ่งที่คุณอีต้าพูดผมคิดว่ามันมี อาจจะมีคีย์เวิร์ดสัก2-3 คำที่เป็นคำที่สำคัญมากแล้วก็อาจจะชวนนะครับเพื่อนๆที่นี่โดยเฉพาะคนไทยนะครับเราอาจจะต้องมองไอ้สิ่งที่เรียกว่าจดหมายเหตุในมิติใหม่เนาะคือพอใช้ในบริบทของไทยภาษาไทยคำว่าจดหมายเหตุมันเป็นอะไรที่มันดูเก่าแล้วก็มันไม่มีชีวิตแต่ว่าสิ่งที่คุณอีต้าพูดเนี่ยมันมี3-4 คำที่มันอยู่รอบๆไอ้คำว่าอ่านไม้เนี่ยนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นเมมโมรีความทรงจำ legacy มรดกนะฮะหรือว่า collective การมีส่วนร่วมกันอะไรเงี้ยซึ่งไอ้3-4 คำเนี่ยมันหมายถึงว่าเราจะทำยังไงที่เราจะเอาความทรงจำของคนหลายๆคนมาสร้างเป็นเรื่องเล่ามาสร้างเป็นข้อเท็จจริงหรืออะไรบางอย่างที่มันอาจจะเป็นสิ่งที่ละเลยที่จะพูดอย่างเช่นในกรณีนี้เป็นการพยายามที่จะอะไรรัฐของอินโดนีเซียเนี่ยพยายามที่จะปิดไม่พูดเรื่องของการละเมิดสิทธิหรือว่าการเอาการฆ่าไม่ใช่ละเมิดสิทธิอาจจะไม่ถึงขั้นฆ่าเลยการฆ่าเลยอย่างเงี้ยนะครับซึ่งถ้าไม่มีความพยายามของคุณดิต้าแล้วก็คนในทีมคุณดิต้าเนี่ยชีวิตหลายๆชีวิตนะครับก็อาจจะไม่ได้ถูกคืนอะไรคุณค่าให้ครับซึ่งในแง่ของการทำอาร์คายหรือสิ่งที่คุณดิต้าพูดว่ามันไม่ใช่แค่การจดบันทึกแต่มันเป็นการต่อสู้ครับก็เป็นมุมที่อาจจะอยากจะชวนเพื่อนๆในเมืองไทยนะครับรวมถึงคนที่เป็นภาคประชาสังคมว่าเวลาที่เราออกไปเคลื่อนไหวไปต่อสู้เนี่ยการเก็บรวบรวมการบันทึกเรื่องราวของตัวเองให้มองเหมือนว่ามันเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของการต่อสู้ด้วยมันไม่ใช่แค่การเอากระดาษเก่าๆเอาบันทึกเก่าๆไปเก็บไว้ในตู้แต่ว่ามันคือสิ่งที่บอกว่าสิ่งที่เราทำอยู่ตรงนี้มันคืออะไรแล้วในอนาคตปฏิบัตินำไปสู่ครับงั้นก็จะส่งเวทีต่อให้ที่อัญชนาเลยแล้วกันนะครับแล้วก็หลังจากนั้นเราก็จะมีเวลาในการดิสคัสกันนะครับเชิญครับไม่แน่ใจออก
ยังค่ะ Thank you for inviting me to join this panel. First of all, I'd like to invite you to come to the south of Thailand or southern border provinces of Thailand that compound with the 3 provinces, Narathiwat, Pattani, Yala, and some part of Songkhla province, and 4 districts in Songkhla province. Okay, first of all, I'd like to introduce my organized team that Duayjai Association for Humanitarian Affairs, or in the past we called Duayjai Group, established in committee 3 January 2010 with my family, by my family, and we have the area that we work with like in the southern border provinces, specific with the who affected from the conflict situation. Our goal of organization, we would like to making or creating a sustainable peace. We call it like a positive peace. It's not like a negative peace in the present right now. We hope to go to creating a justice environment and discrimination in the result because of the population there have like 80% of Malayu Muslims. Even though the Thailand as a whole have compound with the Buddhist religion. Next slide, please. Yeah, what do we collect the information and archive? We have a work on monitoring, fact-finding, and documenting statements about torture case, arbitrary detention, because of we under the special security law with the martial law, emergency decree, internal security act, that through law can detain people more than 37 days in the military camp or police detention, not in the prison, without arrested warrant. And we also collecting information, the family and the story of extrajudicial killing case, and who we work with. We work with the former detainees, returnees or ex-combatants, torture victims, and specific vulnerable groups like women and children who are affected from the violence and affected from the enforcement of law or enforcement of special law. And how we work with, we thinking about the environment of the wild in the southern border provinces or in the conflict area. Who is the center of we work is the
victims. We using the victim approach, but in this circle we call internees because of everybody that we work with. When they leave, when they survival, they will back to their home. And the center of the work internees. And the first level that we creating the micro system that we using the victim approach, creating the good support, the psychosocial support, helping them to stay in the community safety and security and have good relationship with the community. The second level is the macro system. Macro system. Like they have a family, they have a friend, they have a villager in the community. That's why we work with the ecosystem with the community and families to understand the victims when they leave. And the third level is ecosystem, like a private sector. Because of we cannot work by ourselves, but we need to link and have a good relationship with the leader in the religious leader, and government officer who based in the local area. And the last one is the microsystem. Because of the law that makes the people affected from the law. That's why we work in the macro level about to change the policy, to change the law, to change the structural violence, and that it will be affected or change the detainees in the future. This is the concept of our work. It's a heart. My heart will work with the victims. The next slide, please. This is the methodology of and process that we work with. How to our team can access or approach the torture victims. We cannot make trust when we meet them one time. We come into the village. First, we monitoring the situation. We know who the victims, we know who the perpetrators, and then we document it. And then we come into the community and village to find a person who are the victim and make a relationship at the first time. And the second time, we will come again to follow up what they think about our organization, and if we have a good relationship again already, and then we document the information based on the UN mechanism, or we call like a questionnaire based on the Istanbul Protocol or torture, what is called protocol, Istanbul Protocol, like relating with the cat or convention about torture and mistreatment. Yeah, and then we talk with them what they want to change their problem. After they release from the detention, they fear, they stigma, they panic, they want to suicide. This is real situation. After release, they want to suicide because of before they leave from the detention, the officer will say that I don't want to arrest you again, but I will make you late on the boat. That's why they don't feel like a stability and security about their life. Some people cannot go outside the house. They stay in the room. 3 years stay in the room, not working, not go outside, not have a relationship with the neighbor. And then we talking about and discussing them what they want to change themselves. If they want to change themselves, join us about the program. The program that we provide for them like a rehabilitation program for recovery their life, recovery about the psychological problem by the clinical psychologist, the specific clinical psychologist who work with the victim, torture victims since 2015 with us, and they are planning together with us and the victims about the the program that the victims need. And not only the victim, but also the family too, because of the family don't know what happened in the detention, and the family cannot know when they explore feeling inside or emotions that the victim cannot control themselves. And then we work with the family to handle the situation when something happens in their life, in ordinary life. Yeah. And after that, we follow up the situation in their home because of we want to make sure that they are safe, and they will come. We will come into the village to talking with the community to make sure that the community understand what happened to this victim and helping together to support each other. After the victim have a good life already, we support the economic support to make them have a good livelihood, because of before we come to their village, they cannot work, they cannot go outside, and then we organize the economic support for them, and they can take care their children. The children can go to school, and the children have a power to have a good relationship with the father, because of some father or some torture victim using domestic violence due to the torture effect. Yeah. And yes, this is the picture showing that the way that we use it, like the picture of the right hand. This is a woman who lost her husband from the extrajudicial killing, and this is the field, the farm that we support for the community who face of arbitrary arrested. And we working with the community to promoting human rights and peace by using the victim to provide the workshop inside the community to make sure that they can connect with the community and have a role inside the community to make him have a good dignity, work confidential, have a good confidential again, and have good relationship with the community again. Yes, this the three pictures, like a clinical psychologist from Malaysia who help us to organize the rehabilitation program. And yeah, we use one technique about recovering the torture by using the art therapy. We using the body map to someone cannot speak out about what happened during the detention, and body map we can use the color, we can use the symbol, and then he can show in what happened from the body map that we saw after being pen already. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can see the result of the art therapy on the right-hand side. This is before we provide the individual counseling and group counseling. And on the left-hand side, after individual counseling and group counseling already, you can see the symbol disappear, the color change. Yeah. This picture showing as the art, botany art space before, and some body map show as the BACC and organized with the C-Junction and Duayjai organization. Next slide, please. Yeah. It's not easy to work with the people who suffer from torture victims, like I said before about the mental health problem. And first, we face off the community mistrust and social perception. People not only in the South, but also around the world, think that who was detained will be a bad person. And he, what do you call it? To be served with torture. This is the common idea around the world. It's not fair for them because we don't know who is innocent or not. And also the practical and logistical barrier right now in terms of the funding, raising, and even though it's not the funding raising, but we want to continue working with the torture victim or torture survivor because of trust cannot build if we continue because of the fund or because of the money. But trust must continue. But we need you to a new way to connect it with it in the future. And also safety and security risk. I can show with the next slide about the security and safety risk that not only my organization face, but also the victim face. And the impact of the peace process. Due to the conflict situation, we have a peace negotiation. When the peace negotiation happens, the violence in the withdrawal or the southern border process started again and again, many times, and affected to the people, ordinary people, because of the search, arrest, and detain. That's why people, it's not easy to talk about the torture and reprisal from the perpetrator, reprisal attack to the victim, and attack to the organization who talking or speak out about torture in the detail, and also collapse. And lastly, assassination. Next slide, please. No, back. Yeah, this is, you can see, I was charged 2 times about this defamation and computer crime act. And this is when we come into, the picture showing when we come into the village, if you have the broadcast. The next slide, please. I would like to say that this case make our team and me stagnant and down from working because of Mr. Learning was detained 5 times in the past and was tortured 2 times in the military detention. And we provide the rehabilitation support for him and family, many programs until he can training about the Thai method and come and joining the clinic to be a good livelihood in the future. But he is a volunteer of Duayjai and speak out about torture, and he was assassinated last year in 24 to 2024. Yeah. That I feel like this is a failure case that I work with him and family. Next slide. Yeah. Then after that, we try to organize the way how to protect victims and protect our team. Like risk assessment first, protocol about field visits, and data protection, legal awareness, and psychosocial support our team because of we receive many information. Community assessment strategies, I work closely with the community leader, with the religious leader, and like the last cannot post everything that I want to post. Low visibility operation approach is good for us and for the victims that we work with. The next slide. This is the book and report about document and statement that Duayjai collecting 2011 until now. It's some part of it, like a torture, the human situation, the peace process in 2025, extrajudicial killing case, and discrimination against the Islamic private school. This is some part of that we collecting the information and documenting. The next slide, please. Yeah, you can see our work from the website. Website is showing the information, the statistics that we collect every day, and make you know what human rights abuse in the southern border provinces. And the Facebook will posting about the situation, real situation every day, and we can collect and report every month and every year. Okay, the next slide, please. Yeah, this is the goal of our organization about the transitional justice. This is compiled with the 4 pillars: truth seeking, accountability, recognition reform, yes, and reparation. Archive will make the victim come access to the reparation. Archive will make the perpetrator have an accountability, and archive will collect information about the victim to put into the peace table in the future. That is the hope that I work for archive. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anchana. I think for me, in this case, I think one of the things that I found is, I don't know if what should be the suitable word or whatever, the body mapping. I think that's another one part of the archive. But I just my curiosity, I think that was kind of like art therapy in one form, right? That for those who have the bad experience to kind of like to reflect on what happened and try to dealing with the bad memory or bad experience on that. And that's like kind of like inspiring in the sense that to show that archive is not, there are many ways how to proceed archive. And this is like one way that it's not only just the record, but it's also like the tool for the person gone through something that's bad. Find methodology in the archive and actually make the person empower them dealing with what happened. Okay, so without further ado, I think this might be the time for everyone who joined this section to participate. I know that there are many information to digest, but I do believe that many of friends here who present here in this room, or maybe someone who watched online, you may also like encountering it through dealing with archive in one way or another. So maybe you can ask a question, or maybe you can even share your own experience about archiving and respond to the panelists. And yeah, the floor is yours. So if anyone like to begin, and raise the hand, and then our team will bring the microphone. Yeah. Yes, one.
Thank you to all of the panelists for sharing everything. This was, I think, all of you did really fascinating and interesting work. I have a question, I guess, to all panelists about archiving in the current digital age. So, each of you spoke about archiving letters, writings, following feelings into the process of trauma. Things, I guess, in a way from previous eras. I think nowadays, during major political events, a lot gets posted online, on Instagram, on Twitter, and other social
There is no question.
Should I restate it or?
More happens with the online world, and how any idea, any plan for the archiving is like a digitized.
From my organization, we collect information by the field visit first and using the form about the record. And then we put into the database. We have the system about the database to collect information about the crime. And we have two databases. One is the torture and other is the human rights related with the conflict in the South Sudan services. Because of for the safety. Like I just said before, one day maybe literally you come to the office and everything disappears. Like your experience.
Yeah, I did a lot of the oral history, especially for women. And women from the victims of the 1965. And actually we don't have any protection or security system for the data. Yeah? We transfer it into the digital, but we never put it into the public because we didn't know about the security, about the situation of the archive. And a lot of the resource persons, they are still alive. For example, I did a lot of the oral history of the women victims of the mass rape, the Chinese women victims of the mass rape in May 1993. Yeah? And what happened with them? Actually, one cannot couldn't research them. We have to put them outside of Indonesia. Why? Because the two survivors were killed after they gave a testimony. One of them is 17 years old and the other is 11 years old. They killed, they cut all his neck. So for us to preserve or to take the digital so we send it to abroad and put it into one visit, even we are thinking not to put it into the iCloud. Yeah. So for Indonesia, I think it is very, very important to put the use of the digital.
I think the question is such an important one, and I will say I have no good answer, but a shared sense of panic, which is that I think about this every time there's a movement or an uprising that I follow closely. So I paid a lot of attention to it during the 2010 protest year, and I thought about it in the context of the protests in the last month against ICE in Minneapolis. But even just, for example, if you think of so many organizations that are born digital and disseminate all of their material via Facebook, via Instagram, via Duayjai, even if you just try to collect all of the statements that come out in a particular moment, it's almost impossible. But they will vanish so quickly. I'll say I share the concern of of how on the one hand I feel sometimes tricked by things being online. It's like, oh, it will be there forever. But of course it's not. They disappear so quickly. But the amount of labor involved if you want to, in a particular moment, record all of this. Just even if we just talk about statements, forget clips, etc. Yeah. is significant, and we're thinking about how to do so systematically.
May I just share briefly because I also dealing with this I'll just share it คือผมคิดว่ามันอาจจะมองต่างครับว่าความท้าทายระหว่างเก็บฟิสิกอลกับดิจิตอลอาจจะต่างกันเนาะอย่างฟิสิกอลเนี่ยมันอาจจะยากในการหาแต่พอเราหาเจอปุ๊บมันจะอยู่กับเรามันอยู่ตรงนั้นกระดาษมันไม่หายไปไหนสารไม่หายไปจากโลกใช่ไหมแต่ว่าผมเคยทีนึงแบบเลื่อนผ่านเฟซบุ๊กแล้วผมไปเจอมีการเมืองบางอันแล้วแบบเฮ้ยมีนี่มันน่าเก็บแล้วมันจะเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของการมองภาพการเมืองไทยในระยะเวลาหนึ่งเลยแต่พอนิ้วเลื่อนปึ๊บเฟซบุ๊กก็หมุนหายไปเลยอะไรเงี้ยผมคิดว่ามันก็ค่อนข้างยากสำหรับงานของพิพิธภัณฑ์เองคือเราก็มีงานที่เป็นกระดาษบางส่วนจดหมายนักโทษการเมืองเนี่ยแต่ผมคิดว่ามันก็มีหลายประเด็นที่ต้องคำนึงในเรื่องของการเอาขึ้นออนไลน์เนาะหนึ่งก็คือคอนเทนต์ไม่รู้ว่าจะเข้าถึงคอนเทนต์ยังไงเพราะว่าหลายๆคนก็ยังอยู่ในเรือนจำอะไรเงี้ยจะไปหาทนายอะไรเงี้ยมันก็ค่อนข้างยากตรงนั้นบางส่วนเราก็เลยเลือกที่คิดว่าเลือกที่จะเก็บไว้ก่อนแต่ว่าคิดว่าในอนาคตก็เห็นความสำคัญก็เห็นความจำเป็นว่าถ้ามันไปอยู่บนออนไลน์ไซเคิลได้ในการเข้าถึงเอกสารอะไรเหล่านี้มันก็จะเข้าถึงคนได้มากขึ้นแต่ว่าก็มันก็จะมีเรื่องอะไรบางฉบับเราก็แบบเอาขึ้นดีไหมมันก็มีเรื่องประเด็นทางกฎหมายอยู่พอสมควรครับก็อยากมองเห็นเลยครับโอเคif anyone have further question or would like to share
Can I share my story? I'm so serious about in the prison, in the Thai prison, it has the prison officer chief for security was in all message. Example, I don't know how to write some message for the outside. The officer will be checked again is detail or not, and it's about political or not, and it's real emotional or not. If yes, they will all the message. Example, my message is my letter want to share for my parents about my emotion is so bad. In the prison is bad, everything feels bad, and some people harass me. I can't lie. Yes, everything I'm gonna have right, get for life, for the letter, for everyone to see. This message, official, is thinking that it's okay. It can share for the society. At one time I talking with the officer, they said, I know your message or in the for the course of the online. Everything is working. In the prison is not secure. Every message, every word is so security. They want to protect the security. Yes, I want to share the message. Yes, and sometimes some message is very good, but it's not real emotional.
Tyrell may respond earlier about what are the challenges why do we deal with this writing by
Thank you so much, Tyrell, for sharing that. But precisely the question of what is allowed to get out and how much is not allowed to get out, or how much eventually makes it out that can be shared in so much later because the censorship is so strong. It has to be that time, so that must be kept in mind. I think there's also one of the things I think about online is the different accounts that people have told me about how they were able to get certain messages out. And I never write about the way in which people explain how they got their stories out because in a sense I think I think about this online whenever I write this piece. Attempting to write stories of resistance or write histories of struggle also involves in a sense knowing what not to write. and what secrets and stories to, in a sense, to just society.
Please.
Okay. Thank you for the speaker. I would like to ask to Tyrell about the concept of political diplomacy. Besides doing archiving material for this book, and also part of youth social movement and last year we faced the outbreak of Madison, and more than 6,000 people got arrested. And now 700 young people, 780 involved. And a lot of them not questioning about the ongoing, what are questioning about the social justice. Most of them are the victim of religious persecution as a pretext to crush the democratic movement in Indonesia. Can we say, or can we label them as a political prisoners? Thank you.
This is a very hard question. I will quick answer and a slightly longer answer. The quick answer is I think yes. And the reason, there's a great book about Martin. There's a book by a guy named Garrett Selber who writes about a political prisoner who started off actually on a drug case in the U.S. and got back to life in prison, named Martin. And he writes, I think, really quickly that there is an argument to be made that every single person is a political being, because to put a human being is distinctly political and anti-human, which I totally agree with. I think it's worth making the category as broad as possible, because it makes it possible to see the ways in which the state at different moments, and it changes, like I imagine in Indonesia, the changes are similar in Thailand, at political moments, who the state sees as an enemy and who they choose to maliciously prosecute changes dramatically. But that decision is always bound up with power and how power is used. So I want to throw the question back to you, which is, you view the 600 and the 700 were being prosecuted as political prisoners.
Very interesting and very courageous woman. And I enjoy the women are very courageous always. But I have a few questions actually. The first one is about the whole issue of perpetrators. Do you document them or not? I understand the focus is on the victims, but we know that it's also very important to understand why people are perpetrators. Because some of them are just normal human beings until commit abuse. Was the case in Indonesia in 1965. The second is about how to make this archive relevant for a general public. Because if it is only us who are interested and read, and then I am afraid we not have much impact. This is always the challenge, I think, about how to really engage in a dialogue with the more general public. How to do this? And I understand the issue of security and secrecy, that certain things cannot be spoken about. And the third one is the collection of the artifacts and collection. Because through my experience in Southeast Asia, I know our artists, academics are very bad at documenting their work. And so the whole issue of documentation is very challenging. And I don't know if you have suggestion about this. Now, you are doing a great job, but of course, there is so much to collect, so much to document that cannot be out there, right? It needs to be done the moment you produce that work. So I wonder how to do it. What can be done to enhance the capacity to document why things happen by NGOs, by civil society? That's the most concern.
Yes, it's not easy for collecting information and documenting into the plan limited in the season from the USDA or other plans. But we using the technologies to collect information for them, like working on the field. Like we moved from visiting, like in the past we visiting many parts for 1 page or 2 pages of the documenting. And now we using like a mobile in the secret channel, and all the information will send via the application that we creating an internet for send the information to us. And this is the new technology that we used last 2 years. But even though sometimes we need to come into the fact-finding immediate because of we cannot only receive the information that some of a little bit message from the information, but we need more environment of the problem that they face. And I'm not sure like answer the right question or not.
To answer what the perpetrator. Yes, we did a lot of the network of the perpetrator. So during the 65, for the perpetrator for the 65, we tried to find the network or the link up of the command. Of the command in how they prosecuted the victims. First, we got the data from the experience of the victims. Yeah? So we asked them, when we did a lot of oral history, we asked them, what happened with you? When do you remember of what with the perpetrator? With the killer. So a lot of the victims, we got the information from the documented or the experience or the memory of the victims. And then we try to link up with the command. And we found that the military, but also how the civil society used by the military. So the system, we found that the system is very structural during the 65. So with the command, and the command in each region, for example, in one province with the command. For example, for Buru Island. When I was in the National Commission of Human Rights, we found that, with the command for the Buru Island, we tried to track down the perpetrator from Suharto, and then from Suharto to Sumitro General, and then Ali Murtopo, and then Beni Mordani, but then small level of the military. And then we found that you know, the United Nations Development Project related with how the Pulau Buru created, because they give the money to the government, to Haberkorn. This is also very important to know about the perpetrators during the 65. No, 1998, the May massacre in the 1998. 158, I was a member of the team of the fact finding headed by Madison. At this time, we found that all the rapers, they raped not with offense, but with the truth. So 158 Chinese were raped by the truth. And they raped in just 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 10 minutes. For the ordinary people, it's impossible. So then we try to track down all the how the machinery. And we found it, the name of the command now is the position of the former. This is what we have to challenge. Like recently, we saw the case of the marriage in the talk, me and Partner Development. Because actually the because what? Because we saw that the common is not in the number one of the Indonesian number one. And we have all the outcomes that the president was that the National Commission of Human Rights tried to interview or ask him to come to Komnas HAM, the National Commission of Human Rights, but he never came. So we have all these ones, all the new rights. So the purpose of very clear, very clear. If we look at the culture change from the 65 to the 1990s, people know. So this is very easy for us if we are trying to open up the situation. And about the other part, this is also very important because we received a lot of artifacts from the 65. But how can we I used to put in the box and then put in the because and then just recently I received a knife, a big knife from the Nahdlatul Ulama activists, the Muslim activists, who were very involved in the killing of the communists in the East Java. And they said that this is the knife of my father. I think the knife is sword, yeah. More about 100 in Java, in East Java. So now I think it is. So now it is working with human rights violations. Yes, it's very, very careful. Because then we have to face with the military. We have to face with the system that still persists and is in the power. We have to face with the number one in Indonesia.
Thank you. Tyrell, you want to respond also? Okay. Yeah, please. Pio, can you just organize the queue? Yeah. And please keep like 2 to 3 minutes because right now we maybe about 20 minutes left. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I would like to ask, how do you encourage torture survivors to share their testimony because they may be unwilling or hesitant? Because of course, on one hand, you have to respect their right of silence,
we could just take a question from the floor, maybe like 3, and then.
Try to be quick and try to articulate a little bit. I have 2 questions. The first question is about, we talk about the record of resistance, right? But it's also the people, most of the cases that we do the archive, there are the people who are suffering from their life experience. And it's kind of like how this is some people who already been experiencing that. They might want to move forward, get away from that type of situation. And how do you balance and what you accept the decisions, the voluntary of the people, and it's also when we talk about the archive. I don't have any idea that the archive should be neutral or we should be in some side because archive itself is also intervention. Usually we think about the archive as intervention, but the archive itself is also intervention. And if the archive is also intervention, the thing that you document, you archive, is my shape from without your intervention. That is how you define or how you establish it. This is the first question. And the next question related to the question about how can we do, like, expand to the general public. Most of the cases that we archive, they are extraordinary. They are extraordinary. They are important. I don't think they're not important, and they also need to be recorded. But there are also the voice of ordinary that's not being heard and not being considered to be recorded. I think in general public, there are still a lot of the stories that been missing out. I walked into the communities of the wooden street community, and we found quite interesting that it's not dying out yet, and we saw how strong women is the leader and run that kind of community. But I don't see any kind of the record of just the general public, the middle class women who just run that business on that kind of thing. We lack of these things, and once when it's gone, we probably cannot have that kind of record as well.
It's a question of comment, maybe I'll just open the floor and then about 7:20 to give 5 minutes to respond to the contribution.
Yeah, actually I wanted to build on one of the questions here about the timing and archiving, and I think it's a very important question was, when we're talking about documenting social movement, and here we're talking from the position of someone who engaged with archives professionally and institutionally. And thank you so much for mentioning archival as an intervention, because I think we can see the limitation of traditional archiving methods and practices because it assumes that we do the archiving work after the fact. But I think that thinking of archiving as an intervention means that thinking of archiving and knowledge management not as an afterthought, but actually something that is in the program design, in the convention design, and
you actually go through like multiple different records that you are working on. So maybe I wanted to have a more like interdisciplinary approach to it, where I think I do believe that you've been working with like psychology, people with psychologist background, psychiatrist background, and whatnot. Because it reminded me of the situation in Palestine right now, for example, the notion of PTSD, the post-traumatic. It's not even post, it's still present, it still persists as what it is right now. And how do you actually convey, or maybe you actually have a close reading of the text that you are testing right now? Did you actually manage to read together collectively with like psychologists, psychiatrist background? And what sorts of trend that you observe from there?
Okay, I think that's the last question for now. And so I will have Heemmina respond first, and then Ita, and then maybe Tyrell, you are the last. Please.
Like I said before, it's not easy to make it due to the depression and anxiety and PTSD that they happen after release from the detention, and the conflict still continue, and safety and security is very important for them, and not force them to talking about their life, talking about the culture, but talking about how are you okay, what anything changed about your life, and the second is a real situation. A man who never out from the room. I asked permission from his wife to visit him and invite him to out of the room first, and then he out of the room at the first time. The second time, when I pass his house, I can visit them with my team, and from the information from the past, they never go out from the house, and I'm giving 300 baht because of children don't want to talk with the father who stay only in the room and not working. And I give him 300 baht and say that this is for your children. I saw the chicken fry shop in the district. Can you bring your children to the chicken restaurant to make the children happy? And the last, the third time, I invite him to join the rehabilitation program. And he cannot go outside. He never go outside. I lend the car to pick him and his wife come to join us to ensuring that he's working safe when he's traveling. This is the first, the one case that I show how we can approach and make them feel like he did not stay alone. I'm not want your information, but I want to be not part of your life, but I want to be a friend who sits near you, who walk with you, not in front of you, or not on the back of you, but stay together, go together from your life to the new chapter of your life. This is our approach.
As by experience, the trauma is not a single trauma. The trauma in the domestic violence is different with the trauma from the conflict and political experience. For example, the collective trauma of the 60 months is very hard. The first generation, they will just keep quiet. They will not say anything about their experience. And the second generation, the third generation will speak but small. Yeah. So the collective trauma, it is part of how the political situation lives and how they discriminate them because in Indonesia, the identity card of the Communist Party, of member of the Communist Party, or the survivor, they have their own, they give the special identity, yeah, and you know, it's very hard, the collective trauma, even not just from the Communist Party, but also from Aceh, from Papua. The discrimination is very rampant, level by level. Yeah. For example, for the 65, because I live in the family of the 65. I lost a lot of the families in the 65. They never thought about what happened. This is a guilt of us. Nobody can stop in the family. Yeah. And what happened with them after 50 years? Slowly, a bit. And for the 1998, just 6 months, 28 years I'm living. It's very special. I never forced the issue. I never forced the family. So I think it's like I'm not listening. I just assist them. Living with them, you know, it's like, you know, like become a friend. That I was with them. And also, I'm always discuss with the team from the Humanitarian University, the psychology department in Humanitarian in Jakarta, the Psychology University. They said that to me that for the collective trauma in Indonesia, for the political situation, because still happen. This is a challenging psychological or how we have to approach the trauma. So, but on the other side, I'm very, you know, I just found that the survivor actually kept their archives and artifacts, yeah, kept the evidence. Then when after the 50 years, then I visited them with, okay, come to my room. This is the archive. This is the artifact. I will transfer it to you. This is after 50 years. So this is part of, this is a challenge for the media, especially for the society. All the years is part of.
All of the questions are so urgent and many are so impossible to answer. So just to share a few thoughts with the question on how to balance stories of resistance with stories of suffering. Something I think about a lot is actually a phrase from movements of people working around sexual assault, which is believed survivors. And I take that phrase into the work that I do as a writer also, meaning listen to what people are writing and saying and write in that vein. And to share an example, Plaenert-Bascom, the author, the former political prisoner and author of the memoir that I mentioned, a few months after she was released, gave an interview to a journalist at Duayjai. And she talked about how incredibly frustrated she was because ever since she had gotten out of prison, she kept being invited by different organizations and groups to give talks about how terrible and awful her time in prison was. And yet the story she wanted to tell was a different story. And so I think listening to the stories that survivors want to tell, rather than asking them to tell the story that an organization wants to hear or a journalist wants to hear, or might be the scholar wants to hear, is really important. Even if it means that you have to then figure out what to do when the story that someone shares doesn't fit what one expects or what one is prepared to do. And just as a question of how to expand to the general public, I feel like I can probably say this to a room full of archivists and activists. much more easily than I could to a room full of academics, which is that I am not convinced most of the things I know from in my own meetings, the work that I've done that has possibly reached a general public isn't any of the, it's not the free books I've written, it's not all the academic articles, no one reads them. I'm fully aware, totally okay with that. It's a translation. And I say this as much as I can to students, to fellow colleagues who can move from one language to another, which is take some of the time that you might have used to write another journal article or another academic book that's going to sell 200 copies that mostly your family won't purchase. And instead translate accounts written by political prisoners, translate accounts by survivors of state violence, translate a bunch of declarations of organizations. That, I think, is what, if there's, for a general audience, is much more interesting and compelling. Like I know in the case of I know some cause letters, his letters, not my analysis of them, is what people want to read. And so that's sort of my advice on how to get material to a general audience, which is that it's the voices of people themselves, not at least in the case of academics, not the academic analysis of it.
Recently, in Indonesia, we had, from the first generation of the survivor, the second generation, the third generation, we visited the camp, we visited the site of the torture. We sat together, and then the survivor of the first generation will tell about the story, and the young generation listen to them. And then on the other side, that we also try to mix between the survivor of the 65 women, survivor of the 65 who were raped, tortured, with the victim of the 1998, with the victim from Aceh, with the victim from Papua. We sit together. Sometimes we just sit up together crying, but this is the process of dialogue, the process of transferring the feelings. This is very important in our context here. But this is the learn that I learned from Argentina. When I went to Argentina, so the mother of the Plaza de Mayo, we tried to discuss in the sense of human heart. It is not the theory, it is not the this is very important. That's why from the Argentina I tried to bring this. But from not really like in Argentina, no, but through the Japanese, through the Java language, maybe sometimes with the Muslim prayer, with the Catholic, it's really like, what they will feel happy. And this is part of how we reconcile. Sometimes we also sing a song. One of the group of the women called Yalita, they sing a song from the Christian song. Bali, other places, So, for the reconciliation, for the trauma healing, collective trauma, we have to be very patient, listen to the survivor, and not just force of our theory, of our, military. No, listen to them. What with them? This is the most important that we have to do. Sorry about it.
ก็ขอบคุณมากครับแพนลิสต์ทั้ง3ท่านนะครับก็อาจจะขมวดสั้นๆแล้วกันว่าวันนี้เราได้เห็นอาร์ไคฟ์ในหลายมิตินะครับคือในบางครั้งเราก็อาจจะโดยเฉพาะคอนเทกต์ของคนไทยเราก็จะพอได้ยินคำว่าจดหมายเหตุมันก็คือกรอกเอกสารใช่ไหมแต่ว่าจากประสบการณ์ของทั้ง3ท่านในวันนี้เราได้เห็นแล้วว่าเฮ้ยมันไม่ใช่ว่ะมันมีมิติอะไรที่มากกว่านั้นและที่สำคัญมันคือชีวิตเนี่ยเป็นคอนเซ็ปต์ที่ผมชอบมากจากที่ตาพูดว่าอาร์ไคฟ์มันคือชีวิตนะ นะครับเพราะว่าถ้าเราคอนเซ็ปต์ใหญ่คืออะไรก็ได้ที่มันมาประกอบสร้างเป็นเรื่องราวหนึ่งอะไรที่มันมาประกอบสร้างให้เราได้เห็นภาพรวมอะไรของเหตุการณ์ของชีวิตคนหรือของสถานการณ์บางอย่างได้ชัดเจนผมก็รู้สึกว่าอาร์ไคฟ์มันมีชีวิตแล้วก็รู้สึกอยากจะแสดงความยินดีแล้วก็แสดงความชื่นชมกับคนที่ทำงานอาร์ไคฟ์ทุกท่านทั้งที่บนเวทีแล้วก็เพื่อนๆจากภูมิภาคนะครับที่หลายๆท่านได้มาแชร์ประสบการณ์กับพวกเราในงานเวิร์กช็อปรวมถึงได้มาแชร์ประสบการณ์ในวันนี้รวมถึงคนที่ได้เอาคอลเลคชันต่างๆที่เขาทำนะครับมาออกบูธตรงนี้ก็อยากจะขอบคุณแล้วก็อยากจะเป็นกำลังใจให้ทุกคนในการทำงานต่อไปนะครับเพราะว่าการบันทึกนะครับหรือว่าการทำให้ประวัติศาสตร์มันมีชีวิตเนี่ยมันเป็นความสำคัญมากแล้วก็เชื่อว่าในอนาคตถ้าเรายังมีความฝันผมคิดว่ามันอาจจะเป็นสิ่งที่อาจารย์ไทเรลพูดระหว่างบรรทัดของจดหมายจากนักพูดการเมืองนะครับหลายๆที่ไม่ว่าจะยุคไหนสมัยไหนไม่ว่าจะยุคกบฏสันติภาพก็ดีหรือยุคปัจจุบันที่หลายๆคนยังอยู่ในเรือนจำในเวลานี้ผมคิดว่าสิ่งที่มันแชร์ร่วมกันคือความฝันว่าเขายังไม่ทิ้งความฝันเพราะฉะนั้นก็เป็นหน้าที่เราในฐานะคนที่ทำงานบันทึกจดหมายเหตุอาจจะมีบริบทต่างกันเลยก็แล้วแต่ทั้งเพื่อนๆที่มาจากประเทศในภูมิภาคในเซาท์อีสต์เอเชียรวมถึงเพื่อนคนไทยนะครับที่กำลังทำงานในประเด็นนี้อยู่คิดว่าก็เป็นหน้าที่ของเราที่จะต้องพาความฝันหรือพาไอเดียบางอย่างของสิ่งที่มันอยู่ในอาคารที่เราทำงานด้วยจดหมายนักโทษการเมืองหรืออะไรก็ดีเนี่ยให้มันไปสู่คนรุ่นหลังเพื่อที่ในอนาคตเราอาจจะได้เห็นความเปลี่ยนแปลงที่ดีขึ้นครับสำหรับวันนี้นะครับผมในฐานะตัวแทนของเครือข่าย Under the Banana Tree Archive Network ครับก็ขอขอบคุณทุกท่านที่มาร่วมงานในวันนี้นะครับแล้วก็ด้านนอกยังมีขนมอยู่นะครับก็สำหรับคนที่มางานก็ช่วยกันรับประทานด้วยครับข้างนอกก็ตอนนี้ขอขอบคุณทุกท่านนะครับแล้วก็หวังว่าเราจะมีโอกาสพบกันใหม่สวัสดีครับ